Deep in a forested land is a dark little forest hamlet, not much talked about. In this hamlet is a wise old witch who has the cure for soul rot. If you want to save your friend, you're going to need her help. Either that, or find the cure on your own. Entering a small patch of dense forest, you see a group of ravenous wolves. They are barking to one another and chasing something down. They seem to be much larger than the wolves you have seen thus far. There are patches of green moss on their backs, and their eyes are totally black with no discernible pupil. Following the wolves, you see a clearing in the forest where their prey, a small rabbit, is cowering against a tree. Before you can act, the rabbit speaks in common. "Oh gods, help me!" After saving this rabbit, they explain that they were given this form by an old hag, and their real name is Noah. At first, they were simply looking to cure their baldness, and had heard that she was a miracle worker. But when she flicked her wrist to cast the spell, they looked to find that she had turned them into a fluffy white rabbit. They explained to the hag, whilst now they had a full head of hair, they could no longer return home knowing their family would likely mistake them for dinner, or disown them for being a freak of magic. After hearing the man-rabbit's case, she decided they were simply ungrateful, and sicked 3 ravenous wolves on him, stating, "I'll give you 10 minutes to run away before I release them. Hop off whilst you can." Then she descended into hideous laughter. After travelling further towards your destination, you are forced to confront the possibility that maybe this witch will be more difficult to deal with than first thought. Your cunning will be required, and it's entirely possible that one of you may be turned into a rabbit. As you approach the foot of the hamlet, you can smell herbs and spices being prepared nearby. The few houses are covered in moss and vines, with small red flowers decorating a neat little path of stones. If you're observant enough, you will spot the hiding animals watching you from dilapidated wooden huts. At this point, you will be hearing the boiling of water in a cast iron pot, along with a crooked humming coming from the shack at the end of the cobbled path. What will happen next is up to you. In this encounter, the party is approaching the hag with one party member exhausted and having just fought 3 very deadly direwolves with the ability to cast Grasping Vine. It's built to put the party on the ropes, so that they have to either use diplomacy to work out a deal with the hag, or fight and intimidate her into healing their comrade. Obviously, one party member has to get soul rot first, and there's a lot of different ways to do that, and create the right conditions for this encounter. If the party has a healer, I would say give them soul rot. It would help to have an overarching villain that did this to the party, that way they have a goal after this tangent. Giving the party more reasons to be careful is the key, but not making it so crazy that they will get stomped. It's more about getting them to think creatively beyond their spells and abilities. The fight with the hag is difficult because she will be using the polymorph people to attack the party. They'll have to decide how to avoid killing these innocent people that just wanted some miracle. If any party members roll high enough arcana, they will find that most of her powers come from her huge cast iron pot, and that she can effectively brew spells in it. But they will still need to work out the recipe. So now we know the basics of this encounter. Let's get into the numbers. As far as levels, the party should be about level 3 or 4 to deal with the threats in this little jaunt. The actual stats are just very slightly modified hag stats. AC of 17. This AC is fine for this difficulty, I think. HP, I gave her 135. I gave them a little more HP because I'm imagining the party of about 4 and 1 member is exhausted. Speed 40 feet. I thought she would be scarier if she moved fast. Her strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. They're not super important, but strength she has a +4, dex she has a +2, constitution she has a +3, intelligence she has a +3, wisdom she has a +2, and charisma she has a +3. You can kind of work out the scores from that. But you only really need the pluses here. As far as skills, she's not super trying to deceive anyone with her appearance like a normal night hag might. more she's trying to fool them so she can turn them into animal slaves. So let's do a +8 to deception, and only a +2 to insight. She's not actually that good around people. Then there's the fact that you're going into her territory, so her perception is going to be a +7. Now, the official stat sheet says she has resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical or silver weapons. But I think we should remove the silver weapon thing because it doesn't really do much, and the party wouldn't necessarily know anything about that mythology. She also has resistance to fire and cold, but I think it should just be cold because she's out here in the wilderness in her old shack, and it's pretty chilly. I like that she's immune to charm because she's just socially inept, she lives out in the woods by herself, and dark vision makes sense too. Now we have the innate spell casting. The spell save for these is a DC 14, which is suitably challenging for this level, and she gets a +6 to hit with her spell attacks. I like the idea of her being a bit like a warlock with very few spell slots, but they pack a punch, so we only need to prepare 4 big play spells. We already know at this point she has polymorph. Let's also give her a 3rd level poison spray, that feels very on theme. Oh, and she needs some random spell that will freak the party out. Let's do banish. So that just leaves 1 final spell. How about counter spell? It's just too good to pass up. Then with her crazy terrifying nails, she does a claw attack that gets a +7 to hit and does 1d8 +4 damage. That leads us finally to the lair actions for this battle. She has this swarm of tiny cute animals that were once people. They'll try and hold down the party and provoke dexterity saving throws. I'm thinking a DC 14, just like the Hag's spell save. And it happens on initiative 15. Whichever party member is doing the most damage will get caught in a wave of tiny paws and beaks as they attempt to restrain their target. Once they're restrained, they can repeat the saving throw at the end of their turn. Their movement is 0 and they get disadvantage to attack and advantage when they're being attacked. And that's the encounter. I hope you enjoyed this video and try to run this in your own games.